Just be there.
Vivek, can we change to the title slide?
Yeah, Amar, am I audible and visible?
Yeah, Samir, if possible, can you remove the mask, please? It's
Okay.
kind of
Sure. Thank you.
okay. This- Vivek, are we ready to go? Okay. Vivek, please tell us when we can start. Okay. Okay. So, good morning to all of you. On behalf of CII and my personal behalf, I extend a warm welcome to all attendees of this session on applications of new innovations and digital technologies to empower small farmers. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce my fellow panelists, Ms. Ilse van Dijl, Agriculture Counselor, Embassy of Netherlands in India, Mr. Samir Goyal, Managing Director, Coromandel International, Ms. Sangeeta Bavi, Director, Startup Ecosystem, Microsoft India, Mr. Rajiv Ranjan, Senior Vice President, Infosys Limited, and Mr. Sanjay Borkar, CEO and co-founder, FarmERP Smart Platform. The agriculture census says that there are 17.5 million or 85% of farm holdings in India that fall in the small and marginal sector of or category of less than 2 hectares. And this number is expected to grow to 91% by 2030. These small farms cover 44% of land under cultivation. They are a major contributor to food and nutritional security of the country, but they have limited access to technology inputs, credit, capital, and markets. Some of the challenges these smallholder farmers confront include unsustainable use of resources, declining farm productivity, rapid growing demand for high quality and safe food, stagnating farm incomes, and fragmented land holdings. Now, new innovations and digital technologies hold tremendous potential for transforming India's agricultural economy. These run the entire gamut from genomics to quality seeds to crop protection, farming systems, mechanization, precision agriculture, and so on. Add to this digitalization of agribusiness, leveraging massive amounts of data from equipment to sensors to drones, satellites, soil, weather, markets. They add immense possibilities, especially as agtech startups innovate in this area. So during the next 45 minutes, we hope to cover how innovations can help improve productivity of smallholder farmers, link them to markets, empower them through innovative and sustainable solutions for crop protection, mechanization, and affordable digital technologies. Specifically in these COVID times, the policies and institutional support required for small holders to adopt access and new technologies. So as I open up the panel, please post your questions in the chat box. Please also mention who is this question is addressed to. We will take up these questions at the end. So I'll start with Sanjay. Vivek, can you please mute your side? Okay. So I'll start this question for Sanjay. Sanjay, you have been digitizing agriculture since 2001, and FarmERP works across the agricultural value chain. What type of digitalization solutions do smallholder farmers need, and how is FarmERP engaging with farmers, specifically the smallholder ones?
Uh, Thank you, Amandeep, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure. I'll just give some background for your question to give me the answer. As you rightly said, around 85% of the land holding is accounted to smallholders, and around 44% is under cultivation. So they face a unique set of challenges, typically on day-to-day basis. And these challenges include climate, shortage of resources, shortage of credit, price volatility, and this makes the agribusiness for that smallholder very unpredictable. I think with the use of technology, uh, this can be converted into a predictable business, more safe, more sustainable, and more smart. And over and above, I think looking at the current scenario of COVID-19, we could also think of a crisis resilience using technology for these smallholders, so which is need of an hour. Technology is basically helping farmers to connect to people, to get advice, to buy inputs, to sell their produce, to transact in a better and faster way. I think that is going to increase multifold coming days. And there are many companies who are working and making farmers' life better through technologies like IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, ERP, blockchain, and I'm happy that we are one of them. So at FarmERP, we basically promote Uberization of agriculture, and with our last decade, more than a decade's experience, and we could impact the lives of more than 1 lakh farmers directly, indirectly, helping them through the technology to get better returns as well as to improve the productivity. So with this experience, I can surely say that and confidently say that if smallholder farmers need to reap the benefit of technology, then we require a digitalization of entire supply chain or the ecosystem, and then only he or she can get the best out of it. Uh, it's not only him independently, individually, but considering all the stakeholders who are onto this platform. Now, technology is not just a mobile app, which typically many of the people see, which can be given to the smallholder farmers and they start using it. But uh, it is about change in a culture. It is about adoption of the technology. It is about user friendliness. It is about affordability for that smallholder farmer. I think we need a convergence of all different kinds of technology put to use to get the best out of it for that smallholder farmers. We have worked a lot with these farmers, and there are certain areas in which we have focused for working with them. We are a B2B platform, and it is being used for various different operations in the supply chain. So for the production, if we say that IoT, farm management solution, or drones, robots can be used. Robots and all are bit little late to come. I mean, it is yet to come in Indian market, but obviously drone spraying has started. People have started using apps, IoT devices, sensors. They've already started for optimizing their resources and getting the best productivity out of the farms. So this is what we have worked with many farmers, including vegetables, rice growers and all. The second point is about the procurement. So it depends on the availability of the produce. So for the aggregators, contract farming companies, they want to know where the produce is available. So with the satellite imagery analysis, one can know which crop is being grown. And once you know that, then the harvest planning can be done and you can ensure the continuous supply of that produce. Third is about the quality. So a lot has been heard about organic farming, residue-free produce, safe and sustainable food production. Now technology can be used, put to use with the tools which can monitor the quality parameters so that we can see that the produce is grown in an organic way or residue-free way. Then comes packaging and storage, where technology can be used as people are getting more aware how my food is being processed, how it is being handled, how it is being cleaned, how it is being packed, is it in a sustainable packaging? So their technology can really help, and we have done some experiments there. Then comes shipping, when transportation right from the producer to the consumer, and in a minimum amount of time, how a perishable good can reach to the consumer, and how we can optimize the route, we save on the fuel. Next comes the traceability, which is again a growing awareness for the consumers worldwide, and they are seeing that from where my food is coming from. In case of issues, the retailers are finding whether I can really recall it. I'm discussing all this from the perspective of a smallholder farmer because they should be aware of all this. What client want, what consumer want, they should understand and they should apply. And I think technology can be used, and we've already worked on this.
Okay.
I think one final remark I would like to put is about the market linkages, which is very important, where new online platforms are coming, and those are connecting farmers with the buyers. So that is going to grow. And contract farming is going to grow multifold, as I could see with the change in the amendment in the law by the government. Also, the number of FPOs will increase. So use of technology will multifold, it will grow, and we are obviously supporting it. I think that's all now from my end.
Thank you, Sanjay. So moving to Samir, Coromandel International is a major player in nutrients and crop protection business, and you personally are a member of a number of fertilizer associations. So what innovations do you see in this area of nutrients and crop protection, and how Coromandel helps smallholder farmers adopt these innovations, and also in adopting technology-based extension services? Samir, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Amardeep, for that, and obviously, and for my other fellow panelists. I hope everyone is keeping healthy and is in this unprecedented times and maintaining necessary precaution and keeping themselves safe. Just to set the context, absolutely right, Amardeep. We are leading agri-input players in the country, dealing across fertilizer, crop protection, specialty nutrients. We talked about organic and biopesticides. But more importantly, we also the largest rural retail network in the country with 800 outlets, mainly in AP, PG, and Karnataka. And we directly reached 3 million farmers through our direct retail outlets. And in our retail centers, not only we provide agri inputs, but also customer advisory services to our farmers, which includes things like soil testing, crop management solution, and we connect them through agriculture scientists through webinars. Now, why we do this is the small and marginal farmers, like you said in your opening remark, is the backbone for Indian agriculture. And as a company, through our retail and agronomist teams, we have customized our solution to offer cost-effective support systems. We are in a tie-up with Yanmar, which is basically a mechanization company from Japan. And by Japan, they have small equipment which are suited to the Indian farms. And we have our customer hiring centers where we provide, basically it's Uberization, where we provide farm machinery to the farmers, basically small and marginal, for their transplanting and harvesting solution. And on the advisory side, not only our retail outlet, but our agronomists reach out to the farmers through agriculture scientists, through webinars to provide them extension support. Now, coming to the main topic, which is very relevant, like we talk, and especially in this COVID time, the application of new innovation and digital technology to empower. The future will be digitalization, and technology is at the intersection. This will be basically to enable sense, infer, and also act. And when I talk about it, when you look at sense, it is, and this will play together. When I look at sense, it is in-field sensing, remote sensing, using of data, both proprietary and public. Infer is about monitoring, analyzing, and prediction. Quite frankly, the farmer does not have this. And act is using of machinery, drones, robotics. We talked about, smart technology, delivery systems, and advisory solutions. So technology will play a huge role and it will transform Indian agriculture. Now, what we have done is, we have started operating on technology. We're providing it as a service, uh, as a company, and we recognize the importance it does to the farmers. And we are taking the next steps in this direction. So we are using agri-technology in both crop and soil diagnostics, in looking at nutrition recommendation, working on farm mechanization services, in knowledge disseminations, and also delivery mechanism. In fact, we are working with IIT Kharagpur and IIT Bombay and IIT Madras in terms of working with to provide solutions to the farmers here, and the whole ecosystem has to come together. Quite interestingly, we did pilot first, in 5 acres farm, and then we went to 6 villages, and we used what is called drone services, basically for digital mapping and intervention. And some of the things are simple. For example, when we studied this through drones, we found that in a village, while the farmer felt, his field was okay, actually it lacked, half the fields lacked organic carbon, and which you could see from what is called a digital map. And all it required was a simple intervention, like putting gypsum to neutralize it. Because whatever agri inputs you put, whatever good seeds you put, that is not going to show results. And then take another farmer, he felt that his field is totally leveled. But when we did digital mapping through drones, we actually found that the field is not level, and therefore the crop is not growing properly. And all it was leading to what is called selenium deficiency. And all he needed to do was to level his field. And and it was quite surprising in a village when we looked at these farmers, there were around 500 interventions which he could do. Various type, whether it is crop, whether it is soil, and this is what precision agriculture is all about, right? And the end results is important. Against the control, the yield in paddy improved by 18%, yield in cotton, and these are small and marginal farmers, improved by 23%. But more importantly, his average return per acre went up by, just reading the figures out, is by 34% in paddy and 55% in cotton. And these are farmers who have been growing through generations, people who have been, who know about agriculture, who have been, have inherited through generations. So all in all, if I have to come to, if the first green revolution was driven by, by what is called a good agriculture input. But the second green revolution, which is here in the horizon, and we'll talk more about COVID later, will be driven by smarter delivery systems, superior product, and data analytics. So that's my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. That is very, very impressive, the numbers that you shared. So, we'll come back to those numbers and how you see COVID and the policies around that. So I'll move to Sangeeta. Sangeeta, at Microsoft, you help support new age startups and entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, and you focus on GTM programs, consumer insights, solution product management, etc. So in the recent past, a number of startups attracted, agtech startups attracted investments, and then COVID hit. A number of these startups actually helped keep food supplies flowing, especially in cities. So what role do you see agtech startups play in helping smallholders respond to this, to a world transformed by COVID? And what type of innovation do you see having greater demand?
Thanks, Amardeep, and morning, afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to take a cue from, my fellow panelists, Sanjay and Samir, what they mentioned. I was actually counting the number of times the words technology and digitization was used, right? I think if you look at the adoption of technology, not just in the agriculture space, but just across industries, I feel that in the agriculture space, we are actually at an inflection point where digital transformation is concerned. And digital transformation, to me, there are like two spectrums of digital transformation, right? One is just doing pure digitization, changing manual things to digital formats to basically bring in efficiencies in this in the system, in the processes and things like that. The other end of the spectrum in terms of digital transformation is basically when technology is helping create new value streams by adopting the best technologies. Now, if you look at what's happening in India, where the adoption of digital transformation is concerned in the agriculture space, is an indication of the amount of entrepreneurial activity that's happening in agriculture. So roughly, I read this number somewhere in one of the reports that every ninth agtech startup in the world is from India today, right? And that's also because a lot of the funding, the investors are basically more bullish about the agtech space. The funding is becoming more accessible. Of course, it's not at the level that it should be, but access to all of this is making interesting sort of startups come up with innovations. What we've seen, we've at Microsoft, we've launched the agtech startup program, and some of the early startups that we are working with, they are in the precision farming space. There are startups which are focused in purely agtech financing, who have built deep AI ML models. There are a bunch of startups. Actually, Samir mentioned about the whole market linkage kind of solution. So roughly about 50 or more % of the startups today in India which are working in the agtech space are actually looking at solving market linkage problems, bringing in supply chain efficiencies and things like that. I think a few sort of startups from our portfolio that we work with, I would like to just call out some of these interesting ones, how they have used technology, right? For solving one part of the market linkage is Ninja Cart, what they are basically doing there. Then there is a startup, Agnext, basically is giving access to information to drive better produce of the harvest. Then there is a very interesting startup called IntelloLab. So what they are doing is they have a digital product of digital suite of products purely built on AI and ML. They use computer visioning, deep learning algorithms to actually monitor the quality of the quality and the fruits and vegetables basically that get produced. And one more interesting one that I would like to sort of call out is crop data. So crop data is about to launch. Due to COVID, actually, they had to push out their launch by a couple of months. They basically are helping the marginal and small farmers, right? And what they are essentially doing is they are fixing the problem of the information asymmetry that is there in this space. What they basically do is they are trying to get all these isolated, what they call as farmlands connected to the mainland, which is basically the whole digital platform that crop data is putting together, where the farmers will get access to knowledge, information about markets, and all of the essential services basically that are there, right? And if you see, when it comes to Microsoft, you said that the GTM programs and what technology stuff that we actually provide. If you look at pretty much most of the startups today, what they need is access to data and access to rich insights out of the data. So what we are basically doing is we are putting together a platform which enables the startups get access to this kind of practical insights from the data. What we have launched recently is something called the Azure FarmBeats platform, which is a industry-specific cloud platform where we have collected aggregated data elements such as soil quality, vegetation, water, humidity levels, and so on and so forth. And what we are doing is we've collected these data sets from different sources, from satellite imagery, from sensors, drones, and all of it, applied, run a lot of vision and machine learning algorithms on these data sets. And this is now accessible to the startups, right? What it essentially does is now startups can build on top of this platform, which means that, it's a faster go-to-market for them in terms of taking their technology to market. And the second thing, as part of the, during not just COVID, but even pre-COVID, and we'll continue to do that, is essentially most of the startups are not just focused in India as a market. So what Microsoft brings to the table is the market access across the 194 countries that we operate in, taking these farmers and the relevant solutions to enterprises and to government entities. So that's essentially how we are seeing the whole space evolve.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you for that. That was really, really informative. So I'll move to Ilse and to talk about a more international aspect of innovation. So Ilse, you are you are an agriculture economist by training, and as the agriculture counselor at the Embassy of Netherlands in India, one of your focus areas is innovation cooperation. So Dutch farming, horticulture, fisheries are constantly innovating and making Netherlands a global leader in these sectors. And despite being a small country, Netherlands has become the second largest exporter of agricultural goods in the world. So what tips do you have for Indian farmers, and how can Netherlands help India become the food factory of the world?
Thank you, Amardeep, and good morning to everyone. It's very nice to be here in these COVID times. At least we still have these webinars and virtual ways to connect. And I hope you're all safe. And thank you very much for having me here on this panel. I think, having all these distinguished speakers and also the Secretary of Agriculture really shows that everyone seems to be looking at India and how to utilize these new technologies to make India's agriculture more intelligent and rewarding. And I'm very happy to be part of that. When you talk about tips from the Netherlands, I actually think there's a lot that India and the Netherlands can learn from each other. I think, both our countries are agricultural powerhouses with a strong willingness to innovate. And I think we both have ambitions that also require continuous innovation. You mentioned that the Netherlands is the second agricultural exporter of the world, but actually our ambition nowadays is more to become the global leader in sustainable agriculture and making agricultural systems more circular, reusing waste streams and such. Of course, that requires continuous innovation, but I think so does India's ambition to become the food factory of the world, to double farmers' incomes, to double agricultural exports. Because as you mentioned, a lot of the farmers are smallholders, which face specific challenges. I do feel that the Netherlands is a good partner for India in developing India's agriculture and making this transition. Just because we've also moved from a system after the Second World War, coming from a period of hunger and then making this transition to becoming a big food exporter. So we're very happy to partner with India on this. And in that sense, we're also very happy to, when we learned about the recent policy changes in agriculture, that will just allow for so much more entrepreneurship in terms of contract farming, farmers engaging directly with processors, allowing for more storage, etc. Well, I think when you look at farmers, a lot of farmers around the world face similar issues. The climate is changing, they're running out of resources such as water. We are facing environmental stress. And for farmers, you know, at the end of the day, they have to make ends meet. So I think what will be the main challenge is to see how we can adapt all the technologies that are now being developed to something's happening to the to the farmers' context. And I think a lot of great work in this sense is being done in India. You know, I think there are so many Indian startups that are going to transform the face of agriculture, and especially the number of digital startups in India is just astounding. And you know, I think the government of India has done a great job also in supporting them with their startup and digital flagship programs. Of course, getting these technologies to the field can be a challenge. I think that's a challenge that we face both in India and the Netherlands, and you know, I think that's a great area to exchange lessons learned. I know that some of the startup incubators in India are, you know, supporting a lot of these IT tech guys and girls and getting them connected really to the field level experiences of farmers. And you know, in a similar way in the Netherlands, we are also setting up, for example, we've set up a national field lab for precision farming, where farmers can experiment with the latest technologies developed, for example, by Wageningen University, our leading agricultural university. And even this week, we launched our Farm of the Future, which has a similar goal to test and demonstrate the latest technologies. And in India, we are also doing that in a similar way. For example, through these centers of excellence that have been set up in several states, where we work together on improving farming practices. And I think, you know, there's scope to incorporate more of these technologies that we are discussing today, especially digital technologies. I thought it was very interesting to see during the lockdown how farmers are still using Zoom sessions, etc., to stay connected. And I read somewhere that mobile phone penetration in India is set to rise to 85 or 90% this year. So I think that holds tremendous scope to bringing insights to the farmers and connecting farmers to global markets. There are already some collaborations ongoing between the Netherlands and India in this field. We were planning to bring an agricultural innovation mission focusing on digital technologies for climate smart agriculture to India in April, but unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we weren't able to. We're now turning that into a digital mission in September, where we're also partnering with CII in their annual AgTech program. So even this week we had a webinar where actually Ranveer Chandra of Microsoft was our keynote speaker. So it's interesting to see a lot of the same people who are active in this field and getting to know them and all the great work that they're doing. We in our mission, we also have an Indo-Dutch startup called Cheetah. They provide digital certificates to Indian farmers and farmer producer organizations to allow them to access decentralized finance opportunities. So I think that's one example of how we're already, you know, connecting our ecosystems to do more together. We also have a Dutch startup called Smart Farming Tech that works with local partners in India to empower Indian coffee and potato and cotton growers through apps that they develop in the local language and that give farmers access to the right information at the right time for sustainable farming practices. And similarly, we have a startup called Van der Sat that is able, through their technologies, to use satellite data to access high-resolution soil moisture data, even through clouds. So, you know, I think a lot of these technologies will benefit farmers in the end because it gives them access to finance, it can connect them to markets, it can help them get their insurance, get insurance and get insurance claims. So I think, you know, there's scope to do more. I would very much hope to connect with more of you later on to find out more about what you're doing. We are also very much looking for Indian startups to strengthen our agricultural innovation ecosystem in the Netherlands. So I'd also be very happy to share more information about ways to do that later on. We've made research funding available specifically for collaboration with India when it comes to climate smart agriculture and digital technologies. We also have research funding available through an instrument called Global Stars. So European and Indian startups and companies can collaborate on R&D R&D in this sector. So, you know, we are just trying to do as much as possible to connect our two ecosystems and to see how we can learn from each other. And I think the challenges are big, but as Sangeeta said, 1 out of 9 of these startups is nowadays from India, and there's so much happening. It's a very exciting time to be working on this topic and to be engaging on this topic with India. So yeah, thank you very much for having me here, and I look forward to our discussions.
Thank you, Ilse. Uh, Giving those examples, as well as I'm very sure attendees would be very interested in knowing all of those research funding and the market access that and collaboration opportunities with Dutch institutions. So I'll move on. We've talked about digitalization, inputs, startups, international collaboration. So let's talk about scaling. Rajiv, at Infosys, you lead service delivery and innovation for manufacturing clients of Infosys, and also lead a team that explores feasibility of new technologies for solving complex business problems. And nothing can be as complex as Indian agriculture. Um, Infosys has vast experience in scaling, deploying solutions at scale. So how can we scale agriculture technology innovations across India in an integrated, smart, sustainable manner, especially focusing on delivering these benefits to smallholder farmers?
Yeah, thanks, Amardeep. I think this is a very pertinent question in today's times, because we see that innovation is sprouting, at various forums at various locations, but the need to bring, scale it up for the larger benefit is something which requires a very orchestrated and a coordinated approach. If we take the example of the agri value chain, there are many different stakeholders. There are these farmers, there are these market makers, there are these technology companies, there are these regulators, and the most important, the academic institutes where the research happens, or the research institutes. The first fundamental principle for scaling innovation is to get the entire ecosystem together. So the ecosystem orchestration, bringing all the pockets of innovation onto one common platform, one common framework, is the first step that we all have to take, so that the value that is derived is amplified in terms of its own benefits and in terms of its own use. So that's one area that definitely all of us need to come together and work towards a common cause. The second one is, these are for those fence sitters who always think that ideas work much better on paper than they work in the real life. And so, we have to move to a space where the physical and the digital world meet. And that's happening, but that's not happening at the pace that we want. It was good to hear about the farms that Mr. Sameer spoke about. You would be surprised to know that at Infosys we also do digital farming, and it's quite interesting, because when we talk about it to our potential partners and our clients, they are very surprised. Now, what we did was, we have huge campuses at several locations inside India. We used the available land inside our campus, where it was being used for, in general, landscaping purposes, into digital farms. So we have the physical farm, we have the entire setup, of capturing the data. We have a platform which integrates all of this together, and then there are certain use cases that are on the platform. And we do grow corn and soybean, and we have been doing this for the last 3 years. So that proof of concept, that lab-based approach is something which is required to test the worthiness of the solution and make it visible. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, now that we have all of this, the dissemination of information and its adoption is of immense need. We have silos of innovation, we have silos of information, but we don't have forums to disseminate it right to the grassroots level, right to the farmers, right to the people in the value chain who deal with issues and the decisions that need to be taken in the whole, agri value chain and in the life cycle. And so how do we disseminate the information and then encourage the people to use it? So that's the third thing that we have to do. The fourth thing is, when we have set up all of this, we have to ensure a multi-directional flow of information. Usually, the information flows one way. The reverse feedback loop does not close and makes, the framework more robust and more capable of handling, diverse situations. So we have to have a mechanism to have the flow of information, coming in and in a circular loop. I like the concept that we spoke about, a circular loop for the sustainable agriculture, but I think it has to be adopted at various different types of farming as well. So in a summary, to scale the innovation, we have to bring together all the silos of information, all the individual pockets of innovation, all the ecosystems together. Bring it to life in the physical world, and then have people come and adopt it and use it. So that's what I would say, Amardeep, from a standpoint of how to scale the innovation.
Amardeep, you're on mute actually. Can you just...
There was background noise happening. So what I was saying was I didn't know Infosys was a new age farmer, but that was very interesting, and it's interesting to, not many companies actually get down the path of proving your own dog food. So very, very impressive over there. During this session today, a number of people talked about changes in policies that have been brought about by the government that will lead to greater innovation. And anybody would like to, open to people on the panel, which policy changes do you think are going to have the biggest impact?
Amardeep, you want me to take the question?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I think to be fair to the agri-government, agriculture, and I'm here also talking about Department of Fertilizer. One of the things which they adopted, and I come from an FMCG background, was that they set up what is called the direct benefit transfer scheme, and all the outlets selling fertilizer is now linked to what is called a POS machine. And not only that, what they have also done is they have these soil health cards, and they have linked it to those POS machine to the farmers' home. And that has been very innovative. We can talk about how how accurate the data is, but even if it is 80-90% accurate, it's very good, at least. And what they are trying to do is to then come to a recommendation on fertilizer to say, look, please use balanced nutrition. because one of the issues is not about the agri input which we use, but it's amount that certain between NPK, N is used a lot more because of the green revolution which happened, then what is called balanced nutrition. And it's not just the micronutrients which are it's not just the main nutrients which are required, but for a good effective yield, depending on crop and soil, you also need what is called secondary nutrients, and you need micronutrients. So I think government has done very well on that. The other thing which is revolutionary, in fact, what they have recently announced by the center is actually, if I can say in context, this is an inflection point. It is more on the output marketing. In a way, this is something which the government has done what the Vajpayee government, sorry, what the the Congress government and Manmohan Singh did to the financial sector, or the Vajpayee government did to the infrastructure. Agriculture output can be really revolutionized by this, because basically they have actually freed the Indian farmer. He is able to now sell outside the mandi system. It will encourage FPOs from coming in. No longer, which was a very draconian law, which was set up way back when the country was in famine, way back in 1943. And then it became an act later when we became independent. So they've done away with this act, and it will lead to a lot of, companies now investing, both private and public, investing in the infrastructure, which will help farmers actually get a better return for his income. And even for companies like us, once the farmer has a better return, he will use superior products and adopt technology. And so I think it's the step in the right direction. Obviously, in a large country like India, where it's a federal and state relationship, the implementation has to be seen.
All the technology guys, the secretary also said that now they are releasing, by next month, they'll release data for 50 million farmers, and by the end of the year, 75 million farmers, which will again be available to the private sector. So one of the bigger challenges that we used to talk about, not having access to farmer data, that being a roadmap or a roadblock for innovation, that is being removed. So a number of these big reforms coming down the path that help innovation to be delivered to the farmers. I'll stop over here and check with the coordinators. Do we have any questions for the panel? Actually, I do see this over here. So Sangeeta, there's a question for you. Okay, that technology being used in farms, but that is not legal in India at this moment. How are you working to solve this problem in working with government to make this legal? Sangeeta, you muted.
Yeah, I realize that. So currently we have, not in India, but in markets outside of India, we actually work on the white space technology. Currently the plans are to sort of get this going. Right now, there's nothing that currently is happening in India specifically for Microsoft.
Okay. I think this question, you could also answer this question. Is there any scheme that will help with the agtech startups, and probably just a question that we normally get around funding and changes in funding? So if you could address that as well.
Yeah, so we actually have, so we've launched the AgTech program specifically for India, where we provide not funding, but our focus for early stage startups is to basically optimize the costs, right? So we give a lot of the Microsoft technologies free for startups to use for the first couple of years. There are a bunch of those benefits which are part of the program. The other thing is we basically have, if there are agtech startups which basically fit into the tech for good cause, which use AI. We have a separate philanthropy grant, which is focused on 3 specific areas. And that's something that, some of the startups can actually leverage. And then the third bucket which we have is our own Microsoft Venture Fund, which is called M12. We just started that in India in December. So startups can also apply for that and leverage the funding from M12.
And M12, is it giving funding to early stage startups, seed level? What level of funding, which level of startups do they give funding to?
So it's not early. It's basically between early and growth stage is what the focus is.
Do you also work with other incubators, etc., where the startups could be getting funding through that?
Yes. So we basically are now building this whole network of the relevant ecosystem stakeholders. The programs just launched about 4 to 6 weeks back, and we are now working with Omnivore, with a bunch of other accelerators, with Sign, the accelerator incubator from IIT Bombay. So yeah, you'll see a lot of those other players coming into the program as well.
Okay. There's another question. I think probably Sanjay, you can answer this. That is, how receptive are FPOs and agribusiness companies in channelizing agtech innovation, and in order to make adoption of technology feasible in the farming communities?
I think as earlier we discussed, like for smallholder farmers individually adopting the technology, there's a lot of roadblocks. But when it goes to FPOs, it is kind of they have a different business model. And FPOs can be run as a business, and adopting technology by the FPOs makes sense, because in that case, it is a collective investment by the farmers, and it is for the collective good. And we are working with a couple of leading FPOs here in Maharashtra and outside Maharashtra also. Like one of our FPO is by the name Goda Farms. They are 12,000 farmers they are working with. And these are all from drought-prone area, wherein the farmer land size is very small, right, from zero 0.5 acres or even smaller than that. And we could successfully implement their entire farm to sell model for them over FarmERP platform. So they are adopting technology, but it's taking little time for them because of typically in the rural areas, the connectivity is one of the issues. Adoption of the technology being it's kind of a change in a culture. Like if you ask us in the urban population, some 6 years back when they were not using Uber and Ola, and now they're using Uber and Ola. So there's a lot of change in the culture. So that will take some time for the smallholders. But we have specific mechanism and training programs for the field executives who work with smallholder farmers. So that helps a lot in the adoption, as we have worked with many fruit growers, many vegetable growers, and also the FPOs working towards it. Recently, we have also added on our a consumer application which help the FPOs to sell their produce to the consumers. So that is also a part of FarmERP platform now.
Thank you. There's a question for Ilse. I'll just find this. Okay. Sorry, this scrolled. There are lots of questions coming up. So Ilse, the question was, given your experience in Netherlands and the agri setup in India, what do you think? What type of changes do you think the government and universities need to make to promote and accelerate role of technology in the agri sector in India?
Thank you, Amardeep. That's a very good question. From the experience of the Netherlands, if you want to make innovations that last and that are really adopted on the farm, it's crucial that everyone works together. so that the government provides an enabling policy environment and some stimulants if needed, if the market is not able to provide these incentives. And of course, the universities are the hotbeds of research where these innovations come up. And in that sense, I also learned about India, and that in India, researchers are also interacting with farmers and with these KVKs, and I think that's very crucial. And I'm impressed by the ICAR network that exists in India and all the research that they are doing. I think the system in the Netherlands is a little bit different in the sense that we might have closer collaboration between industry and research, as far as I can tell. And that has enabled the universities to work with both the private sector and the farmers in developing technologies. I think the situation in India is different because it's not these clusters that we have as we have them in the Netherlands that are driving the research, but it's more the startups. So I think the main question is, how do you make sure that the startups connect to the farmers and understand the underground reality, and again that the government provides the right enabling environment. And I'll listen to Secretary Agarwal in the previous session. That's really something that the government of India is aiming for. And I was also very glad to hear that they are looking at policies to further enable this. And I'm not sure how much I could say about what I think the government of India should change in terms of policy, but when you talk about getting these innovations adopted, one way to speed up adoption of technologies is also by linking them to revenue models for farmers. And a lot of revenue models are linked to exports and being able to access foreign markets where a premium can be paid for products. That's what we've seen, for example, with the grape sector. We've done a project together with the Indian grape sector to improve traceability and reduce residues. And by doing so, farmers are able to access, for example, the European market, and that gives them a premium, and that in turn enables the farmers to have a better income and to be able to invest in new technologies. So I do, like, if there's one point I could make, it would be like to advocate for this international approach and seeing how you can leverage the power that exists in connecting to international markets, also as a way to stimulate innovation within India.
Thank you. Samir, earlier, you had mentioned that with COVID and extension services, there need to be changes. So would you like to talk further on that? We'll have to keep it short. This will probably be the last discussion point before we reach the end of the session.
It's interesting, Amar, what you said on COVID. Actually, firstly, it was said that rural internet coverage has overtaken urban internet coverage. Given the fact when COVID has come, farmers are really being adaptive and adopting technology. It suddenly realized to us our long-term strategy was to get AgTech in, and it suddenly realized to us that we have to really fast track it. So we are now reaching out to the farmers, whether it is through Facebook, through YouTube, through doing webinars, through WhatsApp groups and all. And it's quite amazing to see how receptive the farmers are, how much connected they are. And you can actually do very focused and precision marketing with them. And also, like one of the earliest panelists said, is to have a two-way connectivity. So it's not a one-to-one. You can also get scientists in to talk to them, understand their problems. And we are finding it extremely effective, in fact, much more productive. So in a way, COVID has had a harsh realization, like we are having this discussion. Early on, we would have a conference to come, people's timing. But it's so easy to get connected to millions of farmers across India. And smartphones, phones and otherwise, farmers have adopted it. So it's available everywhere. We are the fastest growing market. India, actually, the number of what is called smartphone adoption is bigger than all the G7 put together. So you can well imagine the amount of potential. We just need to go and get it, and the whole ecosystem has to work on it. And that's something which we can really take advantage of. Thanks.
Thank you. So, with that, a last final quick-fire question going around to the panelists. We can start with you, Rajiv. What are the two innovations that you think are going to be really important, important or impactful over the next couple of years?
Yeah, Amardeep.
Just very quick.
Yeah,
quick
so
answer.
yeah, I would put it from a persona of a farmer. So innovations around, the crop stress, is definitely, something that is of great help. And while we have spoken a lot, but remote irrigation would be the other one, which would help the farmer.
Okay. Samir?
I have three actually. One will be superior products because we can deliver, have delivery mechanism which helps them to deliver, and of course use of data analytics to ensure that the farmers are getting their best produce. So these are the three which will actually help.
Ilse?
Thank you, Amardeep. It's a good question. I agree with looking at the farmer's perspective. And I think, a lot of farmers are and will be facing even more so in the future challenges related to water stress. So any, technologies that can help with that, for example, integrating various data sources and coming up with advisory systems will be key. Another one is technologies that can reduce post-harvest losses. In some sectors, it's still pretty high, the percentage. So I think, you see a lot of technologies, for example, AgNext was mentioned. A lot of these technologies will also become very relevant.
Thank you. Sangeeta?
I see basically from a technology perspective, AI ML being basically the foundation fabric across pretty much all the agtech startups, and also use of blockchain to solve some of the problems.
And finally, you, Sanjay?
Thank you. I think I will talk not from a innovation as way, but as a sector, I would say farming as a service will grow, and of course the market linkages and whatever technology is required to support these two sectors, those are innovations will definitely flourish. Thank you.
So, thank you all. Thank you all my co-panelists, Sangeeta, Ilse, Samir, Sanjay, Rajiv, for your time today and sharing your views. Please can I request all the attendees to join the next session at 12:45 on establishing new network of technology laborers for new solutions. And again, thank you CII for this, for giving all of us this opportunity. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Amar. All the
Thank
best.
you.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.